While this podcast isn't rated explicit, the content may not be suitable for younger listeners. Welcome to Sex for Saints, the Christian couple's guide to great sex. I am your host, certified sex and marriage coach, Amanda Lauder. This is episode 344, Sexual Caretaking. Welcome to Sex for Saints, a podcast for Christian couples. My goal with this podcast is to help enlighten, educate, and inspire you to understand yourself, your spouse, and your sexuality better. I talk about sex in a way you probably haven't heard before. I'm bold, I'm direct, but I keep everything in line with my strong Christian values. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, my friends. Welcome back. Have you ever found yourself prioritizing your partner's sexual needs and desires to the point where you neglect your own? Maybe you're constantly worried about their pleasure or how they're feeling in the moment, so much so that it takes out of your own experience. This dynamic is known as sexual caretaking, and it's something that many people, particularly women, find themselves doing in intimate relationships. So today I want to talk about what sexual caretaking is, where it comes from, the impact that it has on your relationship, and how we can shift this dynamic to create something healthier and more fulfilling for both of you. So let's start out by talking about what sexual caretaking is. So this happens when one partner feels overly responsible for the other's emotional or physical experience during sex. It goes beyond just being considerate or attentive to your partner's needs, which is an important part of a healthy sexual relationship. But instead, sexual caretaking becomes about controlling or managing the other person's emotions, satisfaction, or experience at the expense of your own. A simple way to understand sexual caretaking is to compare it to emotional caretaking outside of the bedroom. Imagine a woman who, during a conversation, is constantly gauging her partner's reactions and adjusting her words to make sure they're never upset. So instead of expressing her true feelings, she bends to avoid any conflict or discomfort. In the bedroom, sexual caretaking works in much the same way. So let's look at some specific examples. The first example is a wife who notices that her husband is struggling to maintain an erection. We just talked about this a few weeks ago. So instead of asking how she can support him or just allowing the moment to unfold naturally, she immediately jumps into caretaker mode, worrying that he might feel embarrassed or inadequate. She overcompensates by enthusiastically telling him it's no big deal and offering to do things she thinks will help his confidence, all the while feeling anxious inside. She's not genuinely present with her own desires and experience. Okay, another example. A husband senses his wife just isn't fully in the mood, but instead of talking openly, he interprets her body language and adjusts his approach to make her more comfortable. He tells himself it's his job to ensure she's at ease, but he never asks her directly what she wants. He spends the entire encounter feeling like he needs to fix the situation, which makes the experience less enjoyable for both of them. So in both of these examples, the caretaker focuses more on managing their partner's reactions and emotions than their own desires or authenticity of the interaction. So where does this come from? Well, it's often a learned behavior, very deeply embedded in our cultural, societal, and sometimes even religious conditioning. Many women, for example, are socialized from a very young age to take on a nurturing, self-sacrificing role, especially in relationships. They're taught that being a good wife or a good partner means taking care of others' needs, even at the cost of their own. So an example of this is a woman might grow up hearing messages like, a happy marriage depends on a wife keeping her husband satisfied, or good women are selfless in the bedroom. These ideas might not be explicitly taught, but they're woven into media, into conversations, and even just subtle comments from family and friends. Another example is that many men are taught that their role in the bedroom is to ensure their partner's pleasure to the point where their sense of worth is tied to their performance. Now, this can lead to anxiety and a caretaker mentality where they feel responsible for delivering a specific outcome, such as ensuring their partner orgasms. So instead of enjoying the experience themselves, they focus entirely on the performance. Now, for some, religious teachings can reinforce the idea that sex is about duty or obligation. Women, especially, might feel that part of being a good wife involves caretaking their husband's sexual needs. And this can create a sense of pressure to perform, even when their own desires or boundaries aren't being honored. And then family upbringing can also play a role. If someone grew up in a family where conflict was avoided at all costs, they might have learned that it's better to placate others than to express their true feelings. And this pattern easily transfers into the sexual relationship, where they may avoid saying no or expressing their own desires to prevent any potential friction. Hey there. I have a fantastic Black Friday offer coming your way, and you're going to get the early scoop. From Monday, November 25th through Monday, December 2nd, you can join my Embrace You Elite Society membership for only $5 for your first month. That's $5 to dive into exclusive content, live coaching, and connect with a community of women just like you. After that, it's just $49 per month to keep going strong. And for engaged couples, my Engaged Couples course will be available for only $49, a one-time opportunity to lay a foundation for lifelong intimacy and connection. So mark your calendars because this Black Friday week special is too good to miss. So now that we've discussed where it comes from, let's talk about the impact that sexual caretaking has on a relationship. So while it often stems from really good intentions, the long-term effects on the relationship can be very damaging. It might feel like you're doing your partner a favor by prioritizing their needs, but the dynamic creates emotional and physical distance over time. So let's break down some of these. The first is a loss of authenticity. When sexual caretaking takes over, you lose touch with your own authentic sexual desires and experiences. So instead of tuning into your own pleasure, you become hyper-focused on your partner. And over time, this leads to a disconnect from your body and your needs, making sex less enjoyable. I can't tell you how many women I've talked to who have no clue what they like in the bedroom because they have been so focused on taking care of his needs that they don't even know their own. So an example of this would be a woman who during sex is constantly thinking about whether her partner is enjoying this or not. She's so focused on how he's responding rather than how she's feeling. And eventually she realizes she hasn't truly enjoyed sex in months or maybe even years because she's always in her head worrying about whether it's good for him. The second thing is it builds resentment. So when one partner is always taking care of the other's sexual experience, resentment can build. The caretaker may start to feel like their needs don't matter, very much leading to frustration. This often spills over into other areas of the relationship, creating a lot of tension in the relationship overall. So an example of this would be a husband who notices that his wife seems to care more about his pleasure than her own. He feels like she's just going through the motions, and over time, he starts resenting the lack of emotional connection during sex. Now, on the other side of this, she's frustrated that her own needs aren't even considered, but she doesn't even know how to express it without causing conflict. The third is an emotional and sexual disconnection. So true intimacy requires vulnerability from both partners. So when one partner is busy caretaking, the real connection between partners can diminish. The person receiving the caretaking may feel pressure or anxiety because they sense their partner is holding back or managing the experience. An example of this would be a man who always tries to make sure his wife orgasms during sex, but he might begin to feel like the pressure to perform is too much. And his wife, meanwhile, senses that he's not fully present because he's so worried about her experience. So they both feel disconnected, even though they're physically together. Along with this, biologically speaking, we are not attracted to the people that we take care of. So if you feel like you're having to manage your spouse and take care of them sexually for things to be okay in your relationship, this can be a huge turnoff. And it makes sense why sex just doesn't sound appealing. The last thing you want to do is take care of someone after you've been taking care of kids all day. Hey there, listeners. Exciting news. I'm opening up a few spots for one-on-one coaching again, and I'm thrilled to work with both men and women this time. If you're looking to transform your intimacy and relationships, this is your chance. Our coaching journey will span 12 weeks, giving us the time and space to make real, impactful changes. Interested? Head over to my website for more information and to secure your spot. Don't wait too long. These spots will fill up fast. Let's work together to create the relationship you've always dreamed of. Breaking the cycle of sexual caretaking requires both awareness and effort from both partners. It's about shifting from a mindset of obligation to one of authenticity and mutuality. So here's how you can start making some changes. First is awareness. We have to recognize the pattern, right? That's always the first step. So I want you to ask yourself, am I focusing more on my partner's experience than my own? Or am I trying to manage their emotions? Identifying these moments can help you become aware of when caretaking tendencies take over. So the next time you're having sex, just notice where your focus is. Are you enjoying the moment, or are you in your head wondering if your partner is satisfied? The second is to shift to mutuality. So once you're aware of the caretaking, the goal is to create more mutuality in your sexual relationship. This means both partners take responsibility for their own pleasure and communicate openly about what they want. So instead of one person managing the experience, it becomes a shared mutual interaction. So instead of assuming what you know your partner needs or wants, ask them directly. Say something like, what would feel good to you right now? And then express your own desires too. And if you have trouble doing that, please come into coaching. That can really help. I really can help you understand how to communicate better. I understand it feels open and vulnerable and sometimes a little scary, but is necessary in order to create that mutuality. The third thing is to set clear boundaries. So caretaking often happens because one partner is afraid to say no or to set boundaries. Learning to express your needs and desires is key to breaking this cycle. And this might mean saying no to sex when you're not in the mood or being honest about what you want in the moment. So if you're not feeling up to sex but are worried about disappointing your partner, try saying something like, I'm not in the mood right now, but I'd love to connect in other ways. I also have a free guide called the 16 Ways to Say No to Sex that if you're not in the mood, it helps you give you ideas about how you can say no that still creates more connection and intimacy rather than just a flat no and withdrawing from each other. All right. The fourth is to communicate honestly. So having honest conversations about your sexual relationship is essential. Talk to your partner about how caretaking shows up for you and ask how they feel about it, and express your fears and desires openly. For example, you might say, I've noticed that sometimes I focus so much on making sure you're okay that I lose touch with my own experience. I'd like us to work on making sex feel more mutual. Number 5 is to practice presence and desire. Being present in your own body and your own desire is one of the most powerful ways to shift out of caretaking. So focus on your sensations, your pleasure, and your connection with your partner instead of worrying about how they're feeling or whether you're doing everything right. You also need to trust that they're going to communicate their needs to you because you've talked about having this mutuality. So what happens when we break the cycle? When you can let go of sexual caretaking, your sexual relationship can transform in ways you might not expect. The first is a deeper connection. When both partners are focused on their own authentic experiences, the connection deepens. You're able to be so much more vulnerable and honest, which fosters that emotional intimacy. The second is more pleasure. So without the burden of caretaking, both partners are free to pursue their own pleasure, leading to more fulfilling and enjoyable sexual experiences. The third is better communication. So as you move away from caretaking, communication about sex becomes easier and more open. Both partners feel free to express what they want and need, leading to better understanding and more satisfying encounters. And fourth is an increased desire. So when sex becomes something that both partners genuinely want, rather than something one person feels obligated to give or manage, desire naturally increases. Both partners feel more excited about sex because it's based on mutual enjoyment rather than duty. So in the end, breaking free from sexual caretaking is about reclaiming your own desires and allowing your partner to do the same. It creates a healthier, more balanced sexual relationship where both partners feel valued, seen, and fulfilled. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining me today. Remember, love is a journey, not a destination. Stay committed, stay passionate, and stay connected. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Like what you're hearing on this podcast? Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Don't forget to leave me a review and share it with your friends.